Hello and welcome back to the podcast. My name is PJ. Today we are going to be rocking another solo episode. Kurt once again could not join me, and so here we are. But the good news is I've been looking over the previous episodes and the solo ones tend to do quite well. I'm not sure why. I think maybe I just sort of pick different topics, or the solo ones I do sometimes kind of plan them out a little bit more because it's a bit different when you don't have someone to bounce off. Anyway, that's what you get tonight. It's just me, because you know why? Because I don't miss, because I think we've done 24 in a row so far, and we've got to keep that streak alive, even if our co-pilot, Mr. Kurtogram, can't be here. Got to get something out every week, keep that streak alive. So that's what we're going to do. I've got a 5-week-old now, 5.5 weeks, Ziggy is, and it has just been the most unbelievable experience. Like, when you tell someone you're pregnant, people are so quick to tell you all the bad things about becoming a dad or becoming a parent. And, you know, people are so quick to say, oh, enjoy your sleep now. You're not going to be getting any sleep. Oh, you know, like, you can't go on holidays anymore. Someone's always got to be with him, and, you know, they can be a handbrake and whatever else. Like, people love to complain about having kids, in my experience, but maybe it's because I'm only 5 weeks in. Not that it's been easy. It certainly hasn't been easy. It's been a massive challenge. It's been a huge learning experience, but it has just been the most beautiful and amazing, rewarding time in our lives. Like, sometimes I just hold him and just stare at him. I get home, I go to work, I think about him all day, you know. I call Jem throughout the day, see what they're doing, see how he's been, what they've been up to, think about him all day. I get home and literally I just want to, you know, hold him and stare at him. My favorite time is bath time. He really loves being in the bath, and yeah, it's amazing how such a small person can have such an impact on your life. It's not just... My whole life now is lived for him. I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that every decision I make, including, you know, everything that I want to do with this channel and my freelance work and all that stuff, every decision I make is now with him in mind. And I think that's a good thing. I think he actually makes me be more effective and more efficient. And to be honest, in a way, I kind of feel like a bit of a better person for it, because I feel like I sort of have my priorities straight now, and you know, where before there may have been, to a degree, endless possibilities, endless ways to spend my time, now I have to be very deliberate with how I spend my time, what I do, who I spend my time with, and, you know, my work and my freelance work. Yeah, if anything, it's made me more resolute than ever that this channel is what I really want to be doing. This is something that I want to build, something that I want to be proud of, and something that I hope that one day can be bigger than just me talking to a camera, you know? Anyway, that's the sappy stuff out of the way. Yeah, being a dad rules, and I know it's only early days. People are probably, some of the parents watching this are thinking, oh, you just wait. But I'm so grateful. I'm just loving it. The good and the bad. It's just, when you get frustrated or upset, or, you know, you're tired because you haven't slept. You know, I wake up in the morning and you look at his little face, and he's just sort of now starting to smile and make noises and be a little bit more alert and active. And you look into his little eyes, and it's just all worth it. That's all I can say. In my life, outside of my day job, I've been shooting property, sort of lifestyle stuff as well, with some hotels. What else have we been doing? A bit of video work too. Outside of that, in my own freelance life, I've actually been pretty busy. I've managed to sort of I have a freelance gig once a week at least at the moment, which is really good. Saturday I actually shot a wedding and I had a lot of fun. I have to say, I think this might be the direction that I take this podcast for now. So maybe let's break it down. Let's roll that little bumper. Okay, on Saturday I shot a wedding. It's my second one for the year. I think. Yeah. My second wedding for the year. And I have to say I really enjoyed it. It's such a big day. It really is a big day. It's exhausting at the best of times. And you have to make sure you charge what you're worth, because otherwise I can see how it would be a miserable gig. But I have to say I really enjoyed it, and now having done a couple recently, I am starting to feel more comfortable in the formula. And I can understand how someone would really enjoy shooting weddings, because I think once you know, the hard thing is always feeling like there's something else you should be doing, or feeling like you need to be in two places at once. That's obviously the benefit of having a second shooter, but for me, I've not done too much of this sort of thing, and I actually find it hard to delegate to my second shooter. It's something that I think could only come through practice and repetition, and also just having that sort of trust and rapport with the person, having worked with them before. That's certainly one thing that I found challenging. But in terms of the actual formula, I think I now don't have to worry so much about having a checklist. The last couple of weddings I've done, I've sat down beforehand, and knowing the couples, I've sort of written down a bunch of photos that I wanted to get, before, the getting ready and all that stuff, then on the way to the venue, and then pre-ceremony and ceremony, and then reception and all that stuff, and I was sort of ticking things off. But I think so long as you are around, so long as you are just in the general vicinity of what's going on, I don't think you're really going to miss too much. So one thing that I ask from my couples is obviously a run sheet of the day with timings and all of that. That's a no-brainer, because as the photographer, really, it's your job to run the day. Any wedding photographers listening, feel free to jump in the comments at any point. If there's anything that I'm saying that is perhaps out of order or incorrect, feel free to jump in down below in the comments. But this is my perspective. I think I've shot 4 or 5 weddings now. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, so long as you're around, I don't think you're going to miss too many moments. Obviously, there are things that transfer across. Excuse me. Obviously, there are things that transfer across wedding to wedding, right? You're going to go. I think generally the first shooter is going to go with the ladies to the the pre-wedding stuff, to the getting ready part. The first shooter is going to go with the ladies. The second shooter is going to go with the fellas, because with the guys, I think there's just much less to do. The guys can be sitting around in the jocks until half an hour before they have to leave, and then they can quickly suit up and run out the door if they have to. But the first shooter generally goes with the girls, which is what I did. And what was I saying there? So you get a run sheet, and on the run sheet, the other thing that I ask for is, this is harder than it looks to do on your own. I don't have too much of a plan for this episode, just a few little points written down. So the first thing that I ask from my couples is the run sheet, and on the run sheet I also make sure that I get firstly a list of all the family members' names, the immediate family and the bridal party. That's something that I try to be really good about, and I pride myself on being really good at, is knowing and using people's names, because if you want to have that level of familiarity and that level of trust and comfortability with someone, I think it's really important that you're not just saying you. if you can just learn the main names, mum and dad of the bride and groom, I think that goes a long way to earning trust from a family. And the immediate bridal party, I understand, like the wedding I shot on the weekend, there were 4 groomsmen and 4 bridesmaids. That's a lot, I understand. But, you have to think that these people are the most important. They're the best friends of the bride and groom. Obviously, the day is all about the bride and groom, but if you can get the bridal party, or at least a few members of each side of the bridal party on your team, then everything is going to be so much more smooth, because they're going to help you, wrangle family members for group photos, or they're going to be happy when you've, I reckon we probably spent a good hour, maybe a bit more than an hour before the ceremony, doing all sorts of different combinations with friends and family and bridal party and whatever before the wedding. And I can understand how, for someone who doesn't usually have their photo taken, this could be quite, an annoying experience. And you don't want to be punished like that. You want it to be fun and easy. So that brings me to the next thing. So after learning people's names, I get my couple to write down exact combinations of the people that they want to get photos of. I'm talking now particularly sort of after they're ready, pre-ceremony, that in-between stage where you sort of do the bridal party photos and the close family and just all the sort of posy ones. To me, that's the hardest part of the whole wedding. It's not making sure to get the kiss or being in the right position for the ceremony. It's that long list of photos that you need to get. I think it's pretty important to have sort of like maybe, 3 to 5 really beautiful looks of the bride and groom just on their own. And then outside of that, you want to have, the bride with all the bridesmaids, the groom with all the groomsmen, the bridal party all together, the bride with the groomsmen, all the different combinations. So I make sure I've got that on the run sheet, and that way I can hand that run sheet, a physical piece of paper. I like to have it physical. I've got it on my phone as well, but I can hand that to someone, either a family member or the best man, or often, it might be a second shooter. I think it does help to have someone who's quite familiar with the couple and the family. But you can hand that to someone else, and they can help you wrangle people when time is of the essence. Because the point of having this list is you can lay it out in the most efficient way possible, and just basically just like run down the list, yell out combinations, have people jump in for a quick photo, and in and out. So let's say you're going to start off with the bride and groom and both sets of parents, right? So I pretty much shot the whole wedding on a 24-70. I know most wedding photographers love to use, beautiful primes, but in my opinion, I didn't have two bodies. I didn't have a body on either hip. So for me, it was just the most efficient way to do it. And I think the photos are 80 to 90% as good as they would be if I'd shot it on a nice fast prime. I never had an issue with the background or anything, and I think the 24-70 is going to be probably even sharper, certainly quicker and more efficient and more comfortable for me, because I can do just about anything I want with that lens. So I had this 24-70. I had my second shooter with a 70-200, just sort of picking off candids and long lens shots behind me. And so what I would do is I'd get a combination in, let's say bride and groom and then parents, and then I'd sort of shoot, full length at 24mm. I'd zoom in, crop them just above the knee, and get like some 50 to 70mm shots for some variation. These are all at 2.8, and that way we've got everyone's outfits, how handsome and beautiful and whatever they're looking and dapper that they're looking on the day. Everyone's outfits in, and then we can zoom in a bit, and we've got everyone, with a little bit of bokeh, a little bit more of a pretty shot, and, more concentrating on people's faces. What I get them to do is start off just smiling, looking down the barrel, and then I get generally like the people on the outside. So if you've got the bride and groom in the middle, I've got the mums and dads to look in towards the couple. The couple's going to look one way, they're going to look the other way, and then everyone back to the camera. And in that time, I can generally get all the shots that I need. One thing that I did learn from shooting this wedding is probably the best way to do it is for me to run through that little sequence. And then as I'm getting ready to, think about the next combination of people, as I'm looking around for someone to bring in, as we, rotate through, I'm going to throw to my second shooter who's over my shoulder, and I can say to the people in front of the camera, all right, everyone now looking at, so-and-so, whoever your second shooter is, and then they are there ready on a long lens to get some, a different perspective. And to be honest, with the 70-200, you can't lose. If you get further back a little bit, you can just get some beautiful, beautiful compression. And I think it's just such a classic, just easy win for, it's a beautiful way to shoot a wedding. In my opinion, that is the hardest part about the wedding, that sort of scramble for family photos. And personally, I'm very particular. The reason that I don't do most weddings that come across my lap, a lot of inquiries that I get, I'll try and handle off to someone else, is because, especially in the past, I've been very, very particular about whose wedding I take on. And that is just purely because some couples, for me, and my personality, it's just not worth the money. Like, no matter what you charge, some couples, it's just not worth going through that ordeal. The couples that I choose tend to be friends or friends of friends that I have a really good rapport with, and that I can just sense from getting to know them. I can just sense that it's going to be a fun and, easy, and just, it's going to be a good day. One of the biggest recommendations I could possibly give, again, take it with a grain of salt as someone who's only shot like 5 weddings, but this is how I planned out my wedding, and this is how I would want to shoot every wedding going forward if possible, is that you get all of the shots, all of the, what do you call it? Yeah, all of like the posed stuff, get that out of the way before your couple meets your guests. Because I know as a guest, there's nothing worse than, you go to a wedding and they have the reception, they have the ceremony, let's say it's in a church or, a cottage or somewhere on a cliff or whatever, wherever the ceremony is, you have that. And then afterwards, there's like an hour or two in the middle where sometimes you go to a different venue, or sometimes you just move to a different spot. You have your canapes and whatever, and then the couple and the bridal party and whatever, they're whisked away somewhere else, often off-site, for photos. And it is just, for everyone involved, it is just frantic. The clock is ticking, and it's a stressful environment. Like, no one's enjoying that. And in my opinion, you're not going to get the best shots because that energy is going to come across. That stress is going to come across in the photos. And honestly, who needs that on their wedding day? So the reason that people don't do this is because a lot of people want the first time that the groom sees the bride to be as she's walking down the aisle, and that's the time everyone sees her first. So they want that to be a surprise. They want that moment captured, whatever. So the way that we get around this is when we do our family photos, when they arrive to the venue or wherever you're going to do the photos, then we will set up a first look. And that's what we did for my wedding. We arrived to the park. No, we arrived to, our first location, and we set it up so the bridal party was there first. The bride, Gemma, stayed in the car. I set up with my back turned to her, and the photo and video crew were there on either side, ready. As she walked up, tapped me on the shoulder, I turn around, and then, oh my God, that is the first look. That way you get to choose the location. You can set up a shot as beautifully as you want. You can pick your own lighting and line the background with the people that you need in the photo. And my light just turned off in the back. That's fine. We're rolling with it. So you can set up the first look, and it just, to me, it works so much better because it takes the stress out of the day. And then after the first look, you can get the bridal party photos, go to the venue, get photos with the family, and then you can just be on with the ceremony. After the ceremony's done, the bride and groom can just enjoy their night. They don't have to go somewhere else. They don't have to worry about timing and being back in time for the venue and driving around in traffic. Honestly, it is just the best thing that you could do, in my opinion, as a couple and also as a photographer. It takes the stress out of the day. Get your photos done before you arrive to your own wedding, including the ceremony. If possible, get your photos done on site or somewhere nearby, because there's nothing more stressful than having to, get stuck in traffic or whatever. Often a wedding is on a Friday night or like a Saturday afternoon. There might be events on. I know in Melbourne, if you live in the Bayside suburbs, there's often like marathons, triathlons, all sorts of things that can clog up the, beachside suburbs where we often have weddings. So just take the stress out of your life and everyone will be happier for it. So one other difficult aspect of being a wedding photographer is the fact that you kind of have to run the show during the day. In my experience, the video crew can kind of get what they need just from peeking over your shoulder. In my experience, the photographer is the one who has to be kind of strict. The photographer is the one who has to make decisions, who has to do the posing, who has to guide the couple. And it's a combination between, like a tour manager, an event planner, and a psychologist. You need to make sure everyone is feeling great and looking great and, just projecting their best, because this is what you're capturing in this moment is a part of that person's life forever. It's a part of the family's history, and it is something really important. So as the wedding photographer, it's your job to kind of drive the day. And there's nothing more frustrating than seeing someone in this position who is indecisive. At a certain point, it doesn't matter what you say or what you decide, so long as you do it with conviction. So if you're looking for a place to take a photo at the venue, just pick something, go with your gut instinct, pick something and go with it. And then if it doesn't work, then you just say, okay, that's great. And now let's do this one over here and move it somewhere else. It doesn't matter. So long as you make a decision and make everyone feel the confidence that you're projecting, even if you don't feel it inside. I think that's the most important thing, because people are clever, and I think people instinctively can smell someone who's not living up to the expectations, someone who's sort of folding under the pressure. So that's one thing I'll say: be decisive and basically show everyone who's the boss. Often you will have to raise your voice. You'll have to at the end of the ceremony, for example, I had to stand up on the DJ booth and I had to organize the whole ceremony and wedding party in for a group photo. And the only way to do that when there's a bunch of people kissing, hugging, talking, music playing, whatever, is you have to raise your voice and you have to be decisive. So yeah, that's what you got to do. Let's talk about the ceremony a little bit. The ceremony, I think, is what we think of as would be a hard part about shooting a wedding, because it's a moment that you can't get back, right? There's the pressure's on, everybody's watching, you have to be quiet, you want to take photos without disturbing what everyone else is doing, all of that stuff, right? In my opinion, the ceremony is not as stressful as it looks or sounds, because the moments are really, putting on the rings, the bride and groom, the bride walking in down the aisle, all that stuff. That's actually not that difficult to capture. The bride is going to walk in through the back of the venue, down the aisle. Generally, you're going to have 15 or 20 seconds of that. So you can, even if you're on your own, you can run up and you can track back down the aisle and get a lot of those shots easily. So long as you trust your equipment and you understand how the gear that you're using works, in my opinion, that's not a hard shot at all. Putting on the rings, exchanging of the vows, that all looks very similar. Even putting on the rings, you're not going to be like literally on top of them to shoot a detail of the ring going on the finger. It's actually pretty hard to tell, what is going on. A lot of the shots of the ceremony, in my opinion, just look very, very similar. I quite like things sort of drawing on my music photographer's background and my touring background. I quite like the idea of looking around to see other things that are happening during the ceremony, because there's no point just shooting the couple and the bridal party and the celebrant the whole time, because for the whole 20 minutes or however long it goes for, they don't really change. They're all facing the same direction, bride and groom staring at each other's eyes, then they put the ring on and kiss and whatever. In my opinion, I think it's really cool if you can look around and capture other things that are happening. So if you can see in the front row that grandma and grandpa have got the hanky out and they're dabbing their eyes, and they're hugging one another, that's a beautiful tender moment that is going to be really important in a few years, because, the oldies aren't going to be around forever, and it's going to be nice to look back on that and say, oh, look, wasn't it nice that we had granddad and grandma there? Or, for example, in the wedding that I just shot on the weekend, the groom's mother had passed away not too long ago. So, sitting in the front row on the first seat was a beautiful framed portrait of the groom's mum. And, in a way, she was there watching on with us. So I made sure to capture a photo with the portrait in the foreground while the bride and groom, or while the bride walked down the aisle with the family. So it was like she was still sitting there in the front row. Little things like that. It's the sort of things that I think I talked about this sort of thing in the last episode, where it's like, you have a special aspect and a special perspective that no one else gets. Same as touring with a band. That is your competitive advantage. The fact that you're essentially part of the family and you have an access all areas pass to a wedding. So I think that's more important than just capturing the same shots again and again. And also, as the first shooter, I think typically the first shooter is going to be in the aisle or up the front during a wedding, and the second shooter is going to be further back, often on a longer lens. So I had my second shooter again towards the back of the room on the 70-200. He's going to be getting the expressions of everyone up there, on stage. And I'm down there, at the ground level, capturing everything as it happens. And, it's a wider angle perspective, which makes you feel a little bit more included and a part of it. But, I think it's nice to look around and see what else is happening during a ceremony as well. Dealing with rogue family members. This is a really tricky one. It's not as simple as it sounds. So during the ceremony on Saturday, there was obviously somebody's uncle had arrived and he had the camera out, pop-up flash on the camera, and he was during the ceremony, he was standing up, he was walking down the aisle, he was standing in front of the family, he was, up in the grill of everyone. At times, he was standing in front of me, he walked in front of Dylan, the videographer, a few times, and, the tricky thing is he thought he was doing the right thing. He's obviously into photography as well. He wants to capture beautiful photos of his, niece or nephew. And it's a really tricky one to navigate because he is a family member. So as a photographer, you might be part of the crew for the day or for the weekend or whatever. But in truth, let's call him Uncle John. Uncle John is actually a part of the family, and I think a lot of people are going to have strong opinions to this, but in my opinion, it's not my place to be rude to him. Everyone can see what's going on, so unless there's something really important happening that this person is stopping you from doing, you just have to be gentle and you have to be polite. And just think of it this way: you basically have 100 people, 150 people, however many it was, looking in on you on whatever is going on. Yes, the focus is on the couple, but you're up there, you're running around, you're drawing more attention to yourself than anyone else except the couple, really. So the way you act is going to reflect on your business. It's going to reflect on your, your skills as a photographer, because part of it is not just taking pictures. Part of it is the people skills and all that. Anyway, Uncle John was there and I was getting very frustrated, but I also had to keep my cool. I did what I had to do and I tried to block it out as much as possible. When the time came after the ceremony, he was in a couple of the photos. It's fine. I work around it. You can crop him. I can get a different angle. It is what it is. After the ceremony, we were getting some shots with, I was doing the group shot, right? Standing up on the platform, ordering everyone. And as I'm trying to wrangle everyone, Uncle John tries to hand his camera up to me. Can you get a shot for me as well? And, as politely as I could, I tried to say to him, it's okay. I've got it covered. I'll send you the photos. Don't worry. You won't miss out. And he was a bit annoyed by this, but what can I do? In that situation, I have to keep everyone's attention. Let's say there was 150 people there. Their concentration is not that long. So for me to get the group shots that I need and get everyone looking at the camera and everyone with a nice smile on their face, particularly, the bridal party down the front, really you've got 15 seconds max, right? You can take 5 or 10 photos and then their attention is going to start to wander and you've missed your window. So while I'm up there, I said as politely as I could to Uncle John, don't worry, I've got it covered. I took the shots and I came back down. And I could tell he was a little bit annoyed about this. But at the same time, I'm sorry, mate. It just doesn't matter. So there's a reason why I'm telling this story. And throughout the night, Uncle John was around. He was up taking photos. He had the pop-up flash. There's a lot of these things that as photographers, as professional photographers, these are red flags. These are things that you just don't do, particularly at something like a wedding, right? You just want to blend in. If you're a guest at a wedding, you should do everything you can to keep the attention away from yourself. It's not about you that night. Fair enough, as the, hired professional photographer on the night, sometimes you have to jump up, you have to stand in front of someone every now and then, you have to do what you have to do to get the shot. But if you're a guest, it's your job to just be a guest and not make it about you. So the reason I'm telling this story is a few other times during the night, there were little issues with Uncle John, and there was some more group shots later on, and Uncle John was in the shots. And I was taking the photos and he tried to hand me the camera again. And again, I tried to say as politely as possible, don't worry, I've got it covered. I'll send you the photos. There's no point taking the photo twice. It's okay. You just be in the shot. I'd rather have you in this one. I think that's more important. And then you get the photos. Don't worry. So after this, the father of the groom came up to me separately a little bit later on in the night. And he very kindly said to me, PJ, you've been amazing. Thank you so much. Like all day, you've done such a good job. I just wanted to say, I really appreciate how you've been with Uncle John. I just wanted to let you know, Uncle John has a little bit of a, let's just say, learning difficulty. He has some issues of his own. He has some, I'm not sure what the correct way to say this is, but he has a mental disability. And I just wanted to say thank you for being kind to him. I understand it can be a bit much, but I think you handled the situation really well. It was words to that effect. I can't remember exactly. And, in that moment, it all made sense. He thought he was doing the right thing. mental difficulties or not, he thought he was doing the right thing. He was enjoying himself. It's his family, whatever. It's not my place as an outsider to come and be rude and potentially ruin the day, not just for him, but for other people watching on as well, because it's a bad look for me. But secondly, I forgot what I was going to say. It just all made sense. And basically what I'm getting at here is that the way I handled that interaction, not that it was probably perfect, but the way that I handled that interaction meant so much more to the family than having some of the shots, blocked a little bit because Uncle John was there, on one side, or I had to step around him, or, anyway, you know what I mean? The fact that they appreciated that I didn't disclude him or be rude to him or whatever was a big lesson in itself for me. And not that I would have ever been rude and, belittled someone or made someone feel uncomfortable or unwanted. It drove home that I'm a guest here as well. Yes, I'm paid, but I'm only part of the family for the day and night. That's someone's brother, uncle, grandson, friend, and it's not in my place to speak unkindly to them either. Anyway, obviously not his real name, but shout out to Uncle John. Like I said, he was only doing the best. He thought he was doing the best for everyone. He thought he was capturing some extra moments for the family, and you can't argue with that. And it's obviously a fine line. I know this would infuriate a lot of wedding photographers. But yeah, I just wanted to share that little thing. The last thing that I want to talk about in the whole wedding sort of space is on-camera flash. It's a little bit of a necessary evil, something that I don't like doing, and I've, to be honest, avoided events because it's just not something that I enjoy. But I think it's important to know how to do on-camera flash and do it well, because you need to be able to control the environment. A reception is more often than not going to be at nighttime, and it's more often than not going to be inside as well. And generally you can't rely on just the ambient lighting alone. It will be too, grainy. You'll have to crank your settings, and it's just not going to be the best look for anyone. So on-camera flash is something that I've struggled with a little bit because, well, honestly, I think that the flashes that I've always used are probably just not that good. Not that good at TTL. So TTL means through the lens. That basically means that if you control the camera settings, the flash is going to try and pick the best exposure in terms of the flash. So I've pretty much always used off-brand flashes. On my Canon, I always had Yongnuo or Godox or whatever. And I just found it could be literally just the fact that it doesn't match the brand of manufacturer. But I just found that I could never rely on TTL with an off-brand flash. For some reason, I would just burn through batteries. It would just either way overdo it. I mean, often you've got a flash pointed up, to bounce into the ceiling, and you're obviously losing a lot of light doing that as well, right? So think about how long it takes the light to get from the top of your flash to the ceiling and then back down, and then still provide a good exposure for your image. That's a lot of wasted light when you think about the inverse square law. My experience in the past has been using like a Godox flash, let's say. I found TTL very inconsistent when communicating to my Canon body, for example, my 5D Mark III. And it was the same with the Yongnuo. I got one of the better Yongnuo flashes, and they boast TTL and whatever else, fully automatic, and like a gun. That's not what I'm talking about. It just never worked for me. So I always was trying to juggle, preserving batteries and trying to make it easy for myself, and also just trying to not spend all of my time in post just changing exposure in all my images, because the flash was all over the shop. So one thing that I'll say is, since that I've bought an on-brand flash, so I shoot with a Sony camera now, and I bought a proper Sony flash. Like, I actually spent a little money on a good flash gun for on camera. It's made such a difference. I can trust TTL now, and I can just kind of relax and enjoy and not compromise my photos because I'm worried so much about the flash. So I've also tried manual. I've tried shooting it manual, and there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can either just, dial in your power or your exposure compensation or whatever as you go. So if you think you're going to need a little bit more, if the ceiling is a bit higher over here on a manual flash, you can just dial it in a little bit more. Or if you're outside, you can tilt the head down and, turn the power down and literally just ride it up and down all night, which is kind of exhausting, to be honest. Or you can point the flash at the person. Often you can use like the Stoffen, diffuser on the front, and just try and shoot people from the same distance every time. That's probably the easiest way to do it. And so long as you're not blinding them with flash, so long as you've got your flash settings quite low, I think it generally looks quite good, and you've got quite a lot of flexibility doing that. But like I said, since getting a Sony branded flash, and I imagine it's the same for Canon, the same for Nikon, whatever, TTL just works really, really well. I actually did use the diffuser on top. I don't know, I think you just call it a diffuser. The brand made them used to be called Stoffen, I'm pretty sure. It was an Omni Bounce. And that was something that I used to get really annoyed at when I would watch people use these in on-camera flash, because it's just like you're sending all of that light in different directions, and you're not, like, it seems like a waste. And that's true to some degree, but I think, again, it was because I used to use the off-branded flashes, and I think they probably just didn't read that very well. So the point of the diffuser is it's a little dome on the top, and the light is going to not only go, in the direction that the flash is pointing, it's going to be a little bit more diffused. So that means there's a thicker, translucent piece of plastic in front, which means there's going to be less of a hot spot where the flash tube is in the middle of the flash. It's going to be a more even light. It doesn't make it softer because it's not a larger light source, but what it does do is also bounce light in different directions. So you'll get a little bit of sort of fill, and the 360 light is going to feel like it's affecting the ambient exposure in the room a bit more. So the 360 component is sort of going to light from the sides, bounce off the walls, a little bit of kick of fill in someone's face. Whereas the main, if you're pointing into the ceiling, the main face of the flash is bouncing straight up and down off the roof and just like, washing over your scene. Anyway, I can't remember where I was going with that, but in my opinion, if you want to shoot TTL with on-camera flash, you want to get the same brand as your camera. I think that's really important. For me, it is still a little bit of trial and error for the first sort of like half an hour of the night. And then once I have my settings dialed, I don't change them for the rest of the night. So for this wedding, again, wedding photographers, tell me if this is out of line and tell me if this is different to what you do. If I could do it better, I would love to hear a way how. But the settings that I have was somewhere around like a 40th or a 50th of a second. And I had ISO 3200 or 4000, and then I was shooting at f2.8. So the reason that I had the shutter speed so low was to drag in some of that ambient light, and it doesn't matter too much about motion blur because the point of the flash is that whatever the flash is going to hit, it's going to freeze that motion. So you can drag, some more ambient in. It doesn't matter if you get a little bit of ghosting or the lights, you get trails or whatever, because the flash is going to freeze the motion by the time it comes back down and hits it, and your subjects are going to be in focus still, even if the background is a little bit fuzzy. And to be honest, that's kind of a style. That's a choice in itself, and a style when shooting events that looks quite good. I just thought of one more thing. The last thing I'm going to say on the wedding topic is that it's always a bit of a balance between shooting what you need to shoot and showing the couple who's paying you and, you know, the family that's put in money to this wedding that you're doing the best job that you can. Because the truth is, and this goes for video as well, but as photographers, we know when we've got the shots that we need. You know, we have that sort of mental checklist going still, and we know when we have enough to fill an album and make everyone happy and to do our job correctly. We know when we've got enough photos. But throughout the night, if we're being paid to be there all night or to a certain time, we sort of have to make sure that we're still being seen to be photographing. Even if we are just basically cutting laps again and again, and sometimes we shoot the same people, sometimes we shoot the same things, you kind of have to be seen to be working if you're paid to be there. A good way to get around this, I think, is if you want to bring a laptop with you. I noticed Kurt and Cara did this, and I thought this was a good idea. You can duck every so often to the bridal suite or the back room or whatever, load in some shots to the laptop, have a look at what you got, maybe start to do a couple of selections, a couple of quick edits, and then once you've had a little bit of a break, you can head back out and, you know, continue shooting. It's a balance, because the more you shoot, the more painful it's going to be to go through them all afterwards. And to be honest, once everyone is, you know, fed and drank and, you know, settled in for the night and just ready to start dancing and partying, the photos aren't that good anyway. You might get some good shots on the dance floor, but as the night progresses, everyone's getting more drunk and more cross-eyed and just less attractive. So that's always a balance, but it is, in some ways, it is a little bit of a performance, and you need to show everyone that you're doing the best job that you can, and that you are worth your salt. You're worth the fee that you charged for the night. Okay, the yawns are coming in now. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Another long one, another solo one, but I'm glad we got it done and we kept the streak alive. I would love to hear in the comments. There are a lot of people that watch this every week. You know, we're averaging sort of like 100 views an episode now, I'm pretty sure. So there are a lot of people that watch this and don't comment. You know, they might tell me in person that they've been listening, and sometimes I might get a DM or a Facebook message or whatever. But if you watch this, and especially if you watch it regularly, I would love to hear from you in the comments, just to say what up and say you're enjoying the show or whatever, because chances are, you know who you are. But yeah, I would love to hear from you. It makes it all worth it to get some feedback. And I've had a few lovely messages, and yeah, it would just be nice to see some of those in the comments from time to time. It does really help, not just to motivate me, but it helps to get the algorithm ticking along, and it helps to recommend this podcast to other people in the future from YouTube. Anyway, thank you again so much for watching. Give this video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.